ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 240th episode of the GeekVerse.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers.
Podcast. I am the VHS love interest now.
I'm the Anapart caster, Dylan Less. Come on, guys. Come on.
I'm the pretzel eating Jessica.
Are those pretzels?
no.
Those are more nuts.
Oh, no.
There are spicy pretzels in here as well.
Oh, there you go.
What's with you, Briggs? Ever since you've been back, you never have a nickname.
I don't think
before.
about nicknames anymore, Tyler Briggs.
There you go. That's a
Wow.
name.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a nice impromptu cast. We usually don't do this, but I'll get into what we're reviewing in a second. Go to our Facebook page. We have heated Star Wars polls going on right
They're
now.
massive.
I'm not sure what it is. It's in round 1 right now while this is recording. You'll probably go, what is it going on? You got Snow versus Palpatine.
Yeah.
So go vote. There's been lots of fun.
There's
lots of
better
debate
matches
there.
than that. Don't worry.
Yeah. There's tons of stuff. We released our 2019 games and movie preview. Those were lots of fun. Very long, but lots of good content there. Next week will be our gas. That too. Our Glass spoilers review, so that'll be fun. I think it's going to be me, Briggs, and Dylan. So, and I don't know what else. I feel like there's something else. Golden Geese is coming up soon.
Me and Briggs are also going to do Into the Breach review. We're going to record it likely Friday.
Boom.
If
Tomorrow.
Not, if that's tomorrow. If not, sometime this weekend. So that'll be up sometime this weekend.
Perfect. So you got lots of stuff, but that's why, ladies and gentlemen, you just go subscribe, whether it's YouTube, podcast services, on Spotify, which we're now on Spotify.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're trying to get everywhere in the globe. We're just taking over the verse. So that's why you subscribe. You get all these glorious casts. What we're going to talk about today is a show called You. Now, this show did originally release in September on TV, so you might be wondering why we're doing this, but it was released on Netflix during the Christmas break, and there's not many shows that we all watch together, unless me and Dylan are doing a Netflix one. Usually TV shows, we got different tastes going on, you know, but this drop, it's a talk of the town with us and many other people, so we're going to talk about You. If you've not joined a review before, we're going to do non-spoilers, and then when we get into spoilers, we will let you know. So, yes, who wants to take the floor while I take a glass of water?
I can start us out here. This show, I don't know. It's a weird one. There's a lot of shows that I end up watching like 1 or 2 episodes, and I get kind of bored and like don't watch the rest of it. That's what 90% of shows are for me, because I just don't really have time, and I kind of cook on the back burner to play video games. That's my priority. But this show, it didn't like necessarily have me hooked on the edge of my seat the whole time, but there was definitely a few episodes where I just like, okay, I have to see what's next right away, click and binge watch through it. So it definitely had that impact on me more than a lot of other shows I've watched. On the same token, a lot of the show really, really bothered me. Pretty much every character in the show is unlikable, which I think was kind of their intention.
I think so, yeah.
A large point, but it's at the cost of having like really annoying characters that like they're just really over dramatic encounters that are really unrealistic and weird. Your main character is very confusing to me. I'm gonna dive deep into that in spoilers, but he doesn't make like any sense. He's like a psychopath. He's not a psychopath. He's really smart. He's incredibly stupid. I was just left confused a lot of the time. I think like the narrative, like the storytelling of it, having kind of like an internal monologue from kind of primarily one character's point of view was interesting and well done for the most part. And overall I had fun with it. But would I recommend it? I don't know. I think I would. I think it's fun enough. I think it's fun enough to watch. But I don't know. There's gonna be another season at some point, and I feel like that could be a big disaster. So I don't know. As it stands right now, I think it was fun enough, but I don't think this is a show I'll ever need to rewatch personally.
Are you gonna watch season 2?
I'll probably watch it if it's on Netflix and easily accessible. I'll definitely check it out. At least the first couple episodes and see what kind of direction they're going with it. I think there's definitely some things set up in this season that if it like just completely ignores those in the second season and just moves on to something else, then I'll make like, okay, I'm not really interested in what this show has to offer because it's just really I'm just really taken out of the story. But who knows? It could flip the other way and just like hook me again with some other character or storyline. So.
Well,
So,
there is a second book out already.
I didn't know it was based on the book.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of this.
First book's You, and second book's Hidden Bodies.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big jump.
It really is. It really is.
Because on You, like you don't really know. You know, it kind of feels invasive, right? But then Hidden Bodies is just like really on the nose with it.
Yeah. So.
So yeah, I mean, in theory, you could find out in what's gonna happen already.
I think there's a lot of books I'd rather read before that, personally. But
Plus-
No, but I just mean that it's in theory, it's not gonna be like we're gonna pick up this random show that was popular
I
and
see what
just
you
kind
mean.
of take it
I see.
wherever.
Plus, I think though, with there only being 2 books, if they plan this going more than 2 seasons, I think they'll very loosely adapt that next book.
Is it how? Do you know how faithful it is? Like, I doubt you have read it, but do you know how faithful it is to the book?
I haven't read it, but I do know one thing, because I was looking into buying it, and the intro to the second book is like X amount of stuff has happened, and I know from watching the show that it's more than that in the series.
Oh, okay.
So
I see.
I don't want to say too much for
Of course.
people
I
that
respect
haven't
that.
watched it.
I'll go next because I'm not sure how Tyler and Jessica feel about it, because I think Dylan's kind of there in the middle. I love this show. This falls in like my guilty pleasure sort of watching. I had a great time with it. It fills my Dexter need that I've needed since whenever he became a lumberjack. You know, like it's that kind of serial killer with an inner monologue trying to tell the viewers why he's right in his own mind. He's a very unreliable... He is probably, next to Patrick Bateman, one of the most unreliable narrators of all time, which I like about it. The best way to describe the show, it's a mix of Dexter, American Psycho, 50 Shades of Grey, Riverdale, and Fear. It's like a lot's going on, and I kind of like that. I won't spoil how, but it's very much like Daredevil Season 2, where the first half was like him and Punisher, then the next half was him and Elektra. This season is, to me, it's like, it's 10 episodes, but it feels like 3's about this, 3's about this, 3's about this. So I really like that. It never felt that things were boring or slow, because there's a few episodes, which I'll talk about in spoilers, I could have taken out. I didn't care about certain people, but I think it had a good pace as far as there's always something new going on. I didn't feel like we were in a rudder or just doing the same stuff too much. There's a few characters where we kind of go in circles, but as far as the settings of the relationships or what Joe's going through, I felt they kept it up, and I felt especially the ending of the season's really strong, because I think if this is a show they could have really took their time and milked. I've never read the book, but I feel like knowing what's happened this season, they could have milked this for a season or two, like 2 more seasons. I'm glad they didn't. It feels like good pace. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of the guy that plays Joe. I can never say his last name, but Penn Badgley. I never watched Gossip Girl. I've seen bits and pieces, but he was always my pick for years to play Robin. I think he's too old now, but I think he does a great job in the show. I think if you didn't have a charismatic guy, it wouldn't work. And I think the thing I like about the most is maybe since American Psycho or House of Cards, it's a minor spoiler, but really the main character is the villain. You know, there's not much redeemable about him, and that's why I like they don't really pull many punches. They don't take time to be like, oh look, he means well. Like in his mind he means well, but he does so much bad stuff where you're just like, this is a bad person that needs to be punished in a certain way, and I respect that, because many shows, they always take a slant. Even Dexter, he's killing good people, right? Like it's at the end of the day, he's a serial killer, but there's a good twist. Same thing with Walter White. He's doing it for his family. Joe's just a fucking creepy guy stalking girls, you know? But in his mind, he's the hero of the story, and that's what I plot for the most. So,
you brought up a good point that it does feel like a lot happens in like one season of the show. I think that's probably a reason why I don't feel like I waste my time with it, because like there is quite a journey that happens in this one season, and it's only like 10 episodes, and they go pretty quick. So it does feel like there is a real progression within the world.
I also shout too, because I've been listening to it on Spotify, great soundtrack. All the licensed music they use for this, big killer for Travis. This is like hitting the sweet spot.
I thought it was very fitting to like the style of the show.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for season 2. I'm happy it's now just gonna be a Netflix original. It's not gonna go to Lifetime again. So I am hoping when it drops next year, it's just gonna be all binge, and I can just. It was for us, but I didn't even know the show existed. And then when it came, it's all well reviewed. So I'm very excited to see where it goes in the future.
Overall, I think I really enjoyed it, and I would probably recommend the show to most people. There's a lot of things I enjoyed about it. I think one thing that stood out to me was the cinematography was really interesting. You'd have to watch to kind of understand what I do, but it feels different. It's not just like the look of it overall, but like it gives a different tone to the narration and the way you feel about when you're certain scenes when you're watching, and it's a really interesting thing that I don't think I can't put my head on anything that I've really noticed cinematography in such a unique way recently at all. So that stood out to me immediately. I think the soundtrack's very fitting, and I love the narration. It's really, I think it's probably one of the strongest things, and it really, this show filled that gap that I haven't been since, say, House of Cards, for example, or something where you follow the point of view of the villain, and you're almost rooting for the villain because of the way it sets it up, and just having that narration on top was really good, very unsettling, and I think that's, if a show can successfully unsettle you, or a movie, or a media in general, I think that's it's done a good job.
Make you feel something. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. So I think that's a very strong point for this show. So if you're looking for a show where you want to be a little like unsettled and you want to follow the bad guy, and get a little perverse with it, this is the show for you.
Yeah, I also think that's good. I know Saris, Dylan's roommate, maybe probably was a little preachy, but I will counter. But Saris is not here to defend himself.
His reviews are very strange.
But I felt that also has, for the most part, in the beginning of the show, a good commentary on social media and people on their phones and stuff like that. We've seen that in many movies and whatnot, but in the dating aspect, and like that is the most, I think, realistic of the show, just how they cover that. Then the rest of the stuff's very fantastical, killer, thriller, but that is like, okay, I can, I'm down with this, so yeah.
Yeah, I think the first few episodes are definitely like, they're definitely there to hook you in, and then it gets it goes a little bit away from that through the rest, and then it does get a little outlandish at some points. So be aware of that. It's not, everything isn't exactly like the first couple episodes, but I think it's worth sticking through it just to kind of see the whole climax.
Yeah.
You were saying that you're kind of iffy on it?
Yes, I would.
So
I have a lot of problems with the show.
So I think I'm kind of in between the two of you guys and or YouTube versus Dylan. I think it was good. I don't know that I wouldn't give it as high of praise as you guys are giving it. I found that there was still times where I'd pick up my phone and, start scrolling, and then, something would happen. I'd start watching again for a couple minutes, and then I'd go back on my phone. And I felt there was one time I had to turn it off because I was so mad. I was just like, this is freaking stupid. Like, I can't even deal with this right now. And then I had to come back to it later. So, which is kind of going on the decisions that are made are just sometimes not smart.
Yeah, I would say it's not like early Dexter or Breaking Bad where they cover all their nooks and crannies. It's pretty fantastical, the show. It's very much like in later seasons of Dexter when Dexter kills a guy in the airport luggage and you're like, this makes zero sense, and you just kind of, the cameras are off. So it's lots of that type of stuff happens.
I feel like its relation to Dexter is very, very minimal, and that's like what I heard, people comparing it to Dexter, but I don't
really.
I disagree with that greatly.
I think it's very similar as far as he is a killer doing bad things.
He's a killer, and there's like an internal monologue. That's like the only two similarities in my opinion. Like the writing is completely different.
Yeah,
completely different.
And he's trying to justify why he's doing it as well too. And I feel like there's a certain relationship he has in the show that really mirrors something in Dexter and Harry, perhaps. Like that's very like that element is there as far as like flashbacks of Joe when he was younger, like very much like
God,
Dexter.
those sequences are so bad. Anyway, go ahead, Jessica. Finish your thoughts.
Also, so whenever we did our superhero draft pick, whenever that was, so not that long ago, I was actually watching Gossip Girl. So I actually have seen it quite recently, and at the beginning it was hard to distinguish the two characters. So considering that's all that I know that guy from, I mean, I agree. A lot of the characters, they're almost one note. They're supposed to be this is their trait. And then this character is this trait. There's not a lot of kind of dimension outside of kind of the core. So, I mean, overall, I enjoyed that I did watch it. I would recommend, if people are looking for something to check out on Netflix, that they give it a watch. And I'll check out the second season just to exactly see where it goes and see what is tied up at the end. But, I'm okay to move on into some deep talk.
Anyone got an non-spoilers shout before we move on?
I don't think so.
Alright, this is your last chance, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't want to spoil, this is the time to tune out. You can come back and later on, because we'll always be here. But if not, 3, 2, 1, we're in the Spoilerville. I think we gotta start with Joe, Gotta start.
That's the whole show.
You gotta start with the name. It should just probably call it Joe, not Hidden Bodies,
Yeah.
Joe Hidden Bodies. Where do we want to start? I want to start I don't know. I think there's how do you guys feel about the performance and the portrayal of Joe before we get into the character? Because obviously I know that there'll be some
so acting wise, I haven't seen this guy in anything that I recognize him in. And I thought he was good, for what, at least for what was written. I thought that he kind of nailed that aspect of it, and acting wise was on point, and he was good at playing like those scenes where there's a lot of scenes in the show where a character will like bring up something to him, and maybe they're like on to him or something.
Yeah.
Then he has like very quick thinking and he says something witty, and I think there's a lot of that in the show, and he for the most part does that pretty well, like having that surprise feeling to it and coming off like mostly organic. So yeah, I thought he was I was pretty impressed with him, and I want to see him in other stuff now because I like this guy.
He's done pretty much just all very teeny girl, like he's in Emma Stone's Easy A. I'm a big fan of this movie
He
called.
was in Easy A.
Oh yeah, hey, he plays her love interest, like the main guy that kind of sees her for what she really is.
That's been a while since I've seen that movie,
Yeah.
so I guess I have seen him in something.
He's in a great B/slasher movie called The Stepfather. It's fantastic.
That sounds like a great
too?
movie.
Yeah, he plays like the army son who's come back, and his mom's married this guy who may or may not be a serial killer. It's tons of fun.
Oh, no.
So he's always been in like very teeny, like that type of stuff where
That's on
dating.
Netflix. If you do want to
The
watch
Stepfather?
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
Dylan Walsh. Woof, good guy.
it. So I'm pretty sure that's where I watched it actually.
Should I watch it, Travis? Would I get enjoyment out of that movie?
Watch it with friends. I don't think it's that. I would say no to you. I think you're not the biggest horror buff, but it's like if you want to really watch him and other stuff, then yes.
Okay.
He's the main character of that show. So yeah, I think he does a great job. I think he's very charismatic. He has to sell being this psychotic, somewhat crazy person, right? And I think he does a really good job of that. I think he does a good job when he has to be kind of scary and stalkerish. I think his best scenes are at the very end, like I don't want to jump, but with Beck when he has her locked up, because he feels so compassionate, but he's also playing like he clearly doesn't understand what he's done and what's going on. Like he thinks locking her up, which I know we're jumping to the end, but he feels that like that's just like a normal like relationship thing to do, and obviously we get backstory about that, but I feel like everything he has to do, whether it's comedic, whether it's scary, whether it's confused, whether it's the love interest part, he does that all very well. So
Yeah, I think Joe did a great job acting, whatever his actor's name is.
Ben Badgley or
He's
Badgelier.
Yeah.
Badge of the year.
It's Badgley.
Badgley.
Yeah. Just gonna
Hey,
call him Penn.
It's like a badge of the year badges.
Pen, my guy, you did a great job acting. And
Come on the show.
it was, I mean,
Join us.
he was really great at having those like really expressive moments, but then also just having that like dead kind of face that like made it very unsettling at some points that kind of needed that. And so it was really nice to see like a broad range of what he was able to do. He could be incredibly expressive and then also just like that like deadpan kind of creepy sort of thing, and he navigated that perfectly.
Where do we want to start with characters, Dylan? I want to throw to you because I feel like you got some stuff, maybe some talking points to bring up as far as.
I have a long list of all the things I hate about this Joe character.
Okay, let's go.
Alright.
That's the best way to
Jump in
go.
this list. So one
to
thing
counter.
that's kind of different from other characters, kind of like this in other shows or movies, is that like it's like a psychopath. They're always like cold and calculated, and they're always like thinking like various moves ahead. And that is like not this character at all.
And he even states that to Beck when he has her at the end, right? He's like, if I was so cold and calculated, I wouldn't have left so much behind, right? Like,
It's weird though, because I just feel like he gets way too lucky in the show, and there's just a million ways that he just gets away with things that I don't think were warranted, and I don't think he proved through like the intelligence of his character that like, okay, I could believe how he made it out here in the end. There's a lot of cases, so I'll just bring them up and we can talk about them. I want to shout out one thing that I really liked about his intelligence. I like that like all those social media posts he would do for like all the characters after he like took their phone and stuff. I thought that was really good because he went out on quite a limb to do some of those. He would just drive out to random places to get photos.
he took a lot of phones. He took Beck's phone. He took Ron's phone. He took Peach's phone. There's a lot of there's a lot of phones. He had a lot on the
Crack
go.
is whack.
I love that he just smeared Benji's life after like just these drug photos. It was great.
Okay, here's one thing. So obviously at the very end of the show, Beck ends up counterlocking him in the cell, and then he reveals that he had a key in there. I know this is probably like a nitpicky thing, but I would really like to see like how he chose to hide it, because I'm really confused how Benji didn't find it when he tore apart the entire place.
He had the key on him.
Yeah.
He didn't.
No, he said
it.
He said it was in the key.
He
said it was
he
in
had
the cell.
an extra key on him in his pocket.
That's the way I
Which
took
is
it.
why-
He just
No,
said,
no,
he
no.
just
That's
said,
when Beck went into his pocket and took the key out to try and unlock the door.
No, he left the lock in the door, I think, when she went in there.
She did. She left that. She takes
There was
that
the
as
lock
pocket.
with the lanyard, But then there's also an extra.
I
little
swear he
key
said
ring.
he leaves one in there.
I think you're wrong on that.
I heard the same thing as you did.
I heard that he just has an extra key. I didn't
Yeah.
like, but who knows? Because I don't know.
No, because he said it specifically. The guy taught him to leave a key in there. That in case
No,
this
the guy-
situation happens,
no,
that there's
no.
one in there.
The guy
Yeah,
didn't teach him to leave
the first
the
thing
key.
I learned after being locked in was to always keep an extra key.
Yeah, he didn't. The guy didn't teach him that. He taught himself that because he hated being locked in there. So he didn't want. The guy didn't teach him that. He took that as like I don't want to. Because I almost took it as. Once he got that library, he thought the same situation could almost happen to him again, so he wanted to make sure while he was in there thinking for hours, oh, imagine if I had a key. So I think as older, he makes himself an extra key. You could be right that he hid him there, but that guy didn't teach him whether.
Well, so I would have liked to see that because that's something I
Yeah.
don't know if I should apply that to his intelligence or just like
luck.
dumb luck.
And I will say with Dylan's putting out brain stuff, but I think this show is very sloppy in that way. That this is very much like I compared to like a Riverdale. It's a very suspension of disbelief. It's a world where many characters can just get away with things because the story wants them to, wants to be more interesting, right?
Yeah.
Which I can value. That's why the show for me is never gonna be top tier, like one of the greatest written shows ever. That's where it comes in like the guilty pleasure, like popcorn watching. So I will say Dylan's gonna have lots of ones that are very warranted in this list.
Yeah, 100%.
So obviously peeing in that jar was really stupid. That whole
Yeah.
segment's really stupid because there's no reason for him to stay in that house. Obviously he's like kind of stunted because he like had a car accident or something, but still.
I think the whole
That's-
justification was he was concussed and wasn't thinking straight through that whole sequence, which is why
but
he was making all those
he literally passed out for various hours, woke up and he's like, I'm just gonna hang around for a bit. Like
I know he's still
dude,
concussed. He's not thinking properly.
That's that was too far for me. That was just way too stupid. And then so the other part after he takes out Beck, like going back to her place to do stuff was incredibly stupid. He already knew that there's a private investigator out there.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
he did. No,
Yeah.
he didn't. He learns about it when he goes, because I watched the show twice. When he has Beck locked up, he then sets up a lunch with her friends to say, oh, Beck's been missing, blah, blah, and they say a writing retreat. And they go, oh, she probably just want to get away from that PI. And he goes, what PI? And then he had already been to her place the night before with the friends. And then the PI gets him later on. Yeah, and that's when he's like, oh, yeah, I had a key, but I just dropped it off. So he found out about it after he knew the PI. So.
I will throw it because I did look. It says the one thing you learn after being locked in there, hide a spare key so you can get out of the goddamn cage. It says hide.
Yeah.
So there was one hidden in that
so
cage.
I would have liked to see like where that was because I know there's like that. There's supposed to be suspense
That's
that
why they did
he breaks
right,
out. But to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like either Benji is he tore apart the entire thing. The fact he didn't see it could just be lucky. Maybe he's a good hiding spot, but like show me that.
I would assume he implied hide a key on yourself. I figured like he has an extra key in his pocket.
I think no matter where the key is, I don't think they can do that scene because then you kill the suspense. If you see him pulling the key, you're like, oh, he gets out instead of doing the classic horror movie. Oh, he appears behind her and gets it, right? Like
pros and cons. I would have liked to see that.
Yeah.
That was just my personal thing, obviously.
I mean, you could have done it at another time. Like one of the beginning episodes, like say that kid accidentally closes the door or something, and he's like, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry."
Well, no, because then you'll know if Beck gets him in there, then there's no stakes, right? When she locks him in, right in that
yeah,
moment,
but that's
you're
what
like,
I mean. Like if you do it at like one of the first episodes, and then maybe your viewers have like forgotten about it, and then if they think back, they're like, "Oh shit, yeah."
Maybe I feel like a key in there would have been big because then Dylan's right. If I knew there was a key in there the whole time, I would have been like, "Hey, Benji's ripping this part. Why hasn't he found the key? This and that." So I feel like it was fine to hold that back because if you remember there's a key, then him being locked up for like the 2 minutes, there's no stakes. Like, oh, he's just gonna get out, which I felt it was gonna like I didn't know if this was like a 1-season show or not. I felt he was gonna get away, so that makes sense. So
another thing is just like how not hidden he is whenever he does like any of his stalking that he's doing all the time. It annoyed me just because at one point he does get caught when he's doing his stalking thing, and it's not by any character's like diligence or anything like that. It's just like, oh, he got caught this one time by Beck. But like that could have gone so poorly for him had it happened like in other particular scenarios. So I just felt like that was kind of lazy.
I have a big problem. Are you referring to the dress up whatever Old Town meeting?
That's one. Yeah, I
have a big problem with that scene.
Yeah, I mean I think a lot of time he just goes way over the top with it. But yeah, just like the one time it just comes up once that he actually does get caught.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of took it out of it. Like if it showed that he was like actually really good at like sneaking around stuff, maybe that would have been cool. But like he's clearly not because like Beck just like saw him once because he was right there. So like the fact that no one else ever saw him is just kind of annoying.
And I guess that's my point where I feel that it is one a little bit of not the greatest run, but I also feel like it is like a series of luck happening to him. But I also feel that eventually, if the show continues to go distance, he's gonna get caught. And I feel like this is all the stuff. Like it's not a Dexter thing where it's like, look how smooth he is. Like, I think it's to show that eventually this guy is gonna get caught, and it's just
all I can review is what I've seen, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this, could change. Obviously, with like more show.
I feel like just the way they end it with the PI mentioning the P jar and the PI reading that book and being like bullshit, and he closes a chapter and bookmarks it. That clearly shows, I think, if this show goes the distance, that all this stuff is gonna lead up to him getting caught. Like you said, it's a show, but I feel like
I could see the same token though, where it's
too.
like, okay, well, this guy's not a cop, so whatever he finds, the cops don't care because they
Maybe,
found their guy who's fucking Bluebeard, and then they can move on with their lives. I've got a couple more here. One, keeping people in that library is an awful idea because, like, obviously if the cops are at all curious about him, because they should be, because so many people related to him have been just getting taken out, they're gonna go where he works. They're gonna talk to his coworker if he's not there, and he's gonna ask to look around or something. Like, why is the door locked? Why is there a weird gate on this door? How can I get in here? Oh, Joe's the only guy that has the key. It's locked all the time. It's soundproof. Oh, that's pretty suspicious. Okay, they go down there's bodies. That could have happened at any point, but it doesn't just because the show didn't want to.
Well, there was one point someone came in and asked to go down there.
Well, the kid was trying to go down there.
Well, and the electrician, and then Joe just said, "Oh, I'll call him again tomorrow." That was what happened.
Right.
Someone came in and he's like, "Oh, Joe has the key. It's usually here, but he forgot to leave it or something like that."
He always got the key on him.
Yeah, so...
I think he gives it to, what's his name, Ethan? Is that the guy that works with him?
I think so.
I think he gives it to when he knows, like, nothing's going on down there.
That's about it. The other thing that really bothered me was how often... Like, I think it was fine for him to go to that therapist once and, like, just to, get a feeling for him so he could decide what he was going to do with him, because he was trying to decide if he was going to kill him or not.
Yeah.
But to keep going back was incredibly stupid, because if Beck, like, runs into him there, or let's say Beck, like, texts the therapist and say, hey, like, I need a session right now. He's like, okay, come on after this. And, like, she just shows up and he's just there walking out. Like, that situation could happen, or if the therapist just, like, bumped into them or something out in public, then everything goes to shit. So the fact that he went back there multiple times was very bothersome to me, very stupid. It was not necessary at all.
I guess.
And then also, it's like all those things are recorded, so the cops are probably gonna look into this and probably gonna find him. If they don't, then it's just an oversight, and it's kind of bothersome that doesn't get found out.
Well, that's definitely gonna happen. I guess that's just a preference, because to me, I feel like the whole show paints him to be a very dumb character. Like, he's not smart. He just gets away with things by the skin of his teeth. Like, there's so much stuff that's lead up that he's gonna screw up, and there's so much stuff, like, even before we know Peach is, like, obsessed with Beck, at the end of the day, he's just kind of having problems with his girlfriend's best friend. He's like, I gotta get rid of this. When really, you're just like, in a normal issue, like, okay, hopefully over time I'll win over his best friend. But he just goes right away, I gotta attack her in the park. Eventually, you get the, she's obsessed with her, I gotta take care of her because maybe Peach is using Beck and she's a bad friend. But at first, it's never good enough for him. And that's what I think, to me, that I like him in the show is, him and Beck are never ever meant to be together, because Beck is an awful character. Beck is a good character, but she's an awful character in the sense of compatible for Joe. But he'll do all these things without taking out people or forcing the issue for them to be together. But in real world, they wouldn't be together because he's not doing any of this. And to me, that kind of plays into Joe with him being very careless. It's never good enough for him. There's always an obstacle. Even when he gets back, there's always something in the way that he has to take out, and it's never good enough for him. And I feel like that's because he's just stupid, and he just doesn't know that he has things or doesn't know what to do. Even the stuff with Ron and Paco, like, that's a huge risk, which I like, because that's why I really like the character Untitled, the character overall. I like that he has many states where he is just a monster, but them giving him this kid to take care of is a really big thing, because it's the same, like, if we're talking about kind of like Dexter-wise, when you meet Dexter first, he doesn't care about people at first, right, other than Deb, but Deb is that core of, like, okay, he cares about somebody, so he's not a complete monster. This guy is pretty much a complete monster, but he still has a soft spot for this kid. Yeah, he sees a little bit of himself, but I think the show does a good job of, I think he is stupid, but a good job of showing the way he is. Like, I understand why he's stupid. Like, I feel like whether he's obviously mentally sick, the thing he's doing, but I think they do a good job at that overall. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a charger for it. So you.
I'll just throw a couple
Throw it away.
more points down on this guy.
Don't throw
One,
those punches.
attacking Peach in the park, really stupid. Obviously, it's fucking, you know, what is that place called in New York? I'm an idiot. What's it called?
Central Park.
Central Park. There's like just
Broad
hundreds of
daylight.
people there all the time. He just hits her in the head.
Throws the rock.
Like the fact he doesn't get caught
Fingerprints
bothers
and
me.
blood.
It's stupid. He should have got caught there. Murdering Ron really confused me. How he just decided to just stab him in the neck right then and there, right in the middle of the street. Obviously the kids saw, and that's kind of shitty. But like, what if there was just anyone else there?
Well,
walking
no,
around?
there's a garden in the fenced area.
Okay, maybe it wasn't.
And
Okay, he wasn't on the road. He wasn't where the cars
I
drive.
mean, there are bushes and stuff in the way.
The reason I took he did that is because the conversation him and Beck had right before that about was him going to prison, what's going to happen to Paco, and I took it as he's killing him because it's like, I may not be around, fuck this, I'm just going to kill this guy so Paco's safe. That's because they literally just talk about what's going to happen to Paco if you're gone. Next scene is him taking out Ron. So that's the parallel of like, okay, he's kind of tying loose ends up, right? Well, if I'm in jail, then fuck this guy, you know? Because he doesn't worry about getting caught because he thinks, you know, does urine have DNA? You know, like he's already kind of decided if he's going to get caught. But Beck writes that good story.
Well, he also kind of goes downhill with kind of everything. You know, Benji's really calculated, and then he starts running, following Peach, like there's thought to it, and
He just does it.
yeah, and then he's just like, okay, shank.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of that progression of the amount of effort that he puts into thinking about, but.
I think that's pretty much most of my things here. I did want to say that, like I mentioned at the start, all those like quick reactions he has where someone questions him on something, and then he like on the fly comes up with a pretty good solution. Those I thought were well done. I thought that those were usually pretty good solutions, and he was pretty smart and really in the moment, like did pretty well. I like those.
Some of them were pretty far fetched though. Like, how did you know I was?
But they're like
those
those are far less far fetched than all those other things I just mentioned.
The one I disagree with is the one very early on with Beck and that whole dress up thing. When he's there and she just bumps into him, at first he lies and says, "Oh, I love books and that's why I'm here." And then he goes, "Oh no, I lied. I saw your Instagram post, so then I tracked down where you are. I got this costume, and I just wanted to, because things were so bad last night." The fact that Beck doesn't be like, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense."
Yeah.
Like, if it was later on in the relationship, I understand. But they had not even, they had their great 8-second, one night stand. But other than that, she's already worried about him as far as working out. And the fact that he just shows up dressed up this thing would have been like, okay, I'm out, But, for some reason, in that situation.
And the fact that he's, doesn't go and confront her immediately when he's there. He's, walking around,
slinking around, trying to, So the fact that it's strange that Beck, gets freaked out so much stuff, but that one didn't freak her out, so. What do you guys feel about Joe? Because you guys haven't talked about you guys obviously talked about the acting. What do you feel about Joe as the character?
I think I liked it for the most part. I think a lot of Dylan's punches he's thrown are quite valid, and I can definitely understand the reasoning behind them. But I think for quite a few things, though, he's not framed to be this super smart, cold, calculating, completely emotionless person. He's the way I see it is he's a character that's what's so unsettling about it is that it's a plausible reality that you could obviously it's a little bit outlandish and obviously there are things that this probably wouldn't actually happen, but for a lot of the stuff this could plausibly be a real person. This is something that someone could actually be doing to people in the real world.
Oh yeah.
And this comes back to the cinematography I like is how the edges are always kind of blurred around a little bit, and there are some scenes where it's very focused on. I noticed this specifically was when Joe was talking to Beck. He would cut it was only Beck's face, very vivid, and then everything around was super blurry, and that kind of ties into just people in general. When you're out and about and you're not expecting somebody following you or something, you don't notice that stuff. You don't pick those things up. Sure, us as the viewers, we think, oh well, he seems pretty obvious in what he's doing, but when you're sitting down for dinner or something, you're talking to your friends, you're not paying attention to these things around you. It's all blurred.
Yeah.
Except for when she does catch him.
Except for when she knew
So
she
it's
was
so
expecting
brutal.
him to be following him at that to be following her at that point.
Yeah, when because
for
cheating,
one,
right?
Peach called to tell her Joe's there when he was at the fair, and then the second time when he was following her about the cheating thing, she knew he was following him. He was following her. So she had a suspicion of him being there, so she was kind of walking around. And but for the most part, she has no reason to think that he's there, so she has no reason. Her brain's not going to like pick up,
especially
and
early
be
on.
noticeable. Yeah,
He's just
especially
like the
early
guy
on.
I had a flirtation with at the bookstore, and he's just.
I mean, sure, it might be a
One
little
episode.
outlandish, and it might be a bit of a heightened sense of disbelief, but for the most part, it is fairly plausible that someone could get away stalking in this fashion.
And
And
then he
then
could fall down for a week.
I think another thing I liked is that they set him up as like, yes, he's sociopathic. Yes, he's like this. He's got a lot of messed up things going around with him. But they set him up as like the way he justifies it, and later on the way he does show emotion, the way he does show heartbreak, and how like frustration, and he doesn't understand why this isn't okay. It still goes in a plausibility of a real world situation where not every sociopath is going to be completely emotionless, completely detached from everything. They might have some of these traits. The one that came up a lot in the show was that they're short-sighted. They don't think things through, which you can very clearly see about him.
Yeah.
But he had a mix of something that you would find in a regular person, and you could see through the therapy, and as things with Karen are going on, he's getting better. He has less of those sociopathic tendencies. But then there's also, he still has those tendencies, and Beck really brings them out of him, brings out those tendencies. But it really does a good job, for me at least, of showing that this could be a regular person with obviously these sociopathic tendencies, but you don't always see them. And you can see their point of view, the way they look at the world, and justify their actions to prove to themselves that they're not the bad guy. And so
I think the one thing for me where that didn't completely fit was the fact that he didn't show remorse. He only showed remorse once, and that was when his neighbor was like ODing, and he was like holding her, and then he like was really kind of freaking out because I don't know, I guess it was close to like someone dying or something, and he just, like wasn't believing that he kills people or something. But other than that, he like doesn't talk about it at all, so it's like nothing to him to just kill people. And so that was a really, that for me kind of is where the confusion lies, I guess, because he does have emotion for like some things, like as you mentioned, the kid, and like obviously like some emotion for like Beck and stuff. But then at the same time, he can just kill people and have no feeling for it.
But
I think like with people, it's never cut and dry as to if you have emotions for this, you have to have emotions for everything. That's what makes it so creepy, and what makes the person a sociopath. They can just completely cut off. They can just be like dead meat. Like to these people, they don't see these people as people. But then there's this other thing that's really important to them that they could be a completely normal person about, or obsessive about.
Because when he has Beck locked up, he's like, I could never hurt someone I love, and that's why I took it as he was doing this all just. That's why I really enjoy the finale, because you get a good sight into her mind and his mind. That, like Rick said, these were just like pieces of meat that were just, he was doing this because this would make Beck's life better. I think if he had to kill Paco for some reason, he would be remorseful because he cares about this person.
I don't think he would kill Paco.
But no, that's what I mean. Like, let's say some shit, or he hit him with a car, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, and he did feel remorseful about killing Beck. I love the inner monologue after he has him. He's like, oh, you would have been so happy. But he's like, I tried the best I could. It's in his own twisted sense of mind. That's why I also like the stuff with Peach. Because when he finds out Peach is like a stalker, he just talks so down to her, and he's like, what a sicko she is. And that's why I really love that. Before, when it was just like the bitchy friend, it's like, okay, we've been here. But when they took that twist, you really got to see how Joe does not view himself as a crazy person. Same thing when Beck is locked up. He's like, I need to show her that I am the good guy. I'm not a psychopath. He doesn't view anything that he's done as wrong. That's why I really like what they did with Peach. Like, the Peach character is fine. She's very generic. I think the actors did a good job, but that twist is good because you get to see his perspective of like, look at this like pervert, you know? It's like, you're doing like, and he's like, you're invading her privacy. It's so funny. Jessica, what do you think about Joe? Joseph. It's just Joe.
Just Joe.
So yeah, I mean, as I've already said, a lot of the shit that happens just really pisses me off. It was that whole thing in Peach's house. Everything that kind of happened, that was when I got pissed off. I'm like, I can't even deal with this right now. Like, he's got whatever his head concussion thing going on is, and he's pissing in a glass and just leaving it there. Like,
concussion's a serious thing, you know?
Slamming doors and...
Well, he slammed the door because he was really pissed off about Peach watching
Beck's
bath,
what I mean.
he wanted to get Peach to leave that situation, to stop her from watching, so he slammed the door.
Yeah, that's stupid.
And
that's
well,
what
obviously
I'm
it's stupid. He's concussed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's not thinking straight. But he could justify it as he's willing to take that risk for
I'm not
that.
talking about whether he's justifying it or not. I'm talking about why I got pissed off watching it.
Okay, that's fair.
Whether or not, like, the whole show, he justifies it in his mind. We hear his monologue for why he justifies everything. That doesn't mean that watching it doesn't piss me off because of how fucking stupid it is. Like the hitting a chick in the middle of city or
Central Park.
Central
Yeah,
Park,
that's a big no-no.
Yeah, like,
It's a
and
big
the chances
no-no.
of the chances of
Jogging was
absolutely
dangerous to people.
no one being around, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, like you said, it's overly lucky. You know,
Yeah.
he answers the phone when the cop calls, and you know, all of this.
And that's where it ends with like the therapist, like him framing the therapist. That's where it's like, wow, that's a master plan, but if that can't work, right? Like it can't work.
Well,
So,
he didn't come up with it though.
That came up with that plan because they use it like her diaries to support that, but I don't think it's gonna work because like I was talking.
I hope it doesn't work.
Yeah, I was talking
really
to
hope it
Dylan
doesn't.
off cast last night. The second John Stamos, what was the character's actual name, the therapist? I can't remember. But the second he
Dr. Nicky.
Yeah, the second he sees a photo of, like, this was Beck's so-and-so ex-boyfriend when she got murdered, and he goes, hey, that's Todd who was dating Joe, and he's going to bring him to the cops. That's where I think this will all unravel. I hope you could be right, and they could just, all the way he gets away with it, and we never see John Stamos again, and that's it. It's just, but I think that's what's going to happen, because there's just too many loose threads that, to me, should be closed off. Because if I would be the same way as you, if they don't do that, then to me, this would hurt that. For me, it's them laying the groundwork of, oh, John Stamos will eventually be like, yeah, this guy, he was a client and blah, blah, blah. And then you got Kansas' dad. You got all these people that are going to say, they just got to get in the room and talk to each other. And if they get in the room and talk to each other, it's over. Joe's totally fucked. But luckily, and I guess that's the other reason I'm making a lot of these characters dumb, like Peach and her friends. Like, they don't, like, they're just so about themselves. Like, no one's going to talk. Peach isn't going to go talk to anybody, Karen or John Stamos. And Beck would, because Beck was more down to earth, but R.I.P. Yeah, she did her talking, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and then, you know, there's also kind of the little things, you know, as far as, you know, this doesn't have anything to do with him, but, like, why the fuck doesn't she have any blinds?
Yeah, I've heard that brought up. That's a pretty bad one, especially in New York. You know, I guess they're supposed to say that she just wants to be noticed, but I can't really write that one off. Yeah. It's, you know. But then also, that's some stuff where it's tough when we do, like, when we talk about, like, Harry Potter or, like, Lord of the Rings. Some stuff, it's, like, things in the book, right? So that's why it's, like, I don't know if I'm taking a shot at the writers of the show, or if this is, did she have her blinds open in the book all the time? Because if so, you're adapting this book, right? So that's where it's like, I never know, is this a negative against the show, or is this a negative? But that's what I mean.
It
I
doesn't
like,
really matter though.
but I still wanted to clarify, be like, I have a problem with that overall. Like, it's not like the writing of the TV show. Like,
at least if the blinds were, like, open and things happened and she, like, forgot to get up and close them, like, there was times you walked past and they were closed or something like that, but you just, I don't know.
Well, that you could get into that for too long. Because what if she, like, in the book, lives on, like, the 17th story of a building or something, and he's, like, watching her through another building or something, right? So it's like, it makes sense that her blinds, there's just no blinds.
Yeah.
Need them in that case.
yeah.
I know in the first episode he does, like, in his inner monologue, he has a reason why he thinks she has a blind. Like, she has just open windows for her apartment, but I don't remember why. It is. I think it is something about her wanting to be noticed and attention-wise.
That was kind of the focus of, like, what her character is for the first couple episodes, I guess.
I mean, they give Ed, like, some sort of reasoning. I don't know how well it holds up, but I mean, it's just a thing.
Just a
they
thing.
decided to have.
Yeah. That didn't bother me as much as other things, but.
No,
It's
but
still there.
I'm just thinking about it. So, I mean, you know, what are some of the other things, like, the fact, one of the ones that got me too, some of them I didn't think were so smooth, his lines that he came up with, you know, oh, should I get a queen or a king? Well, a king's not going to fit. It's like, how do you know? Well, we live in New York. No one can fit a king. It's like, what? That is the worst reasoning I've ever heard.
She has a pretty big house.
Yeah. Like, she has enough room for a king. Come on now. So, I don't know, some of them, his facial expressions, like when Peach is like, you know, after she gets hit and she's like, you knew or something like that. And, you know, his face is just totally like, oh shit. I didn't think it conveyed that he was innocent. Like, he's got this look of kind of cockiness.
Well, I thought that scene, I remember that one, because that's when she's like, when she's talking about, like, you were right that I had a stalker, right?
Yeah.
Because he thought he was caught in that.
Yeah.
He was panicking.
This is it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, there's a couple of just things that, logically, you know, if my friend's like, this guy randomly saved you off this train track in this town that is not close to here and completely out of the way, maybe you should be careful. I might be like...
Well, Peach was saying that, I think.
Yeah.
She did mention that was a little suspicious.
That's what I mean. Like, if I was Beck, I'd be like, oh, yeah, maybe that's a good point. Like, I just feel there was a lot of things that in modern day probably wouldn't just be like...
Beck doesn't really think things through.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
showing that Beck isn't exactly the smartest girl.
She's not very
Yeah,
smart.
yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm sure more stuff will come up as we go. I didn't make a list like Dylan. I wasn't this prepared.
Yeah, we can talk about Beck now because obviously she kind of like co-lead in the show. Obviously, you know, not going to be from next season, but I think the actress did a really good job. Like I said, I think she's a good character, but in a bad sort of way. I think it's just she's not good for Joe. All the things like Benji, very second episode lays out for him like that's not the girl you're going to end up with, and lays it all out. And I feel like if you're listening to this podcast and you've dated before, you've all been there. We were talking about this last night with a couple of our friends. You've all been there where you've been with somewhere where everything seems great. You match up perfectly this, but for some reason it's timing and they don't want to work out or you don't want to. And we've all been there. And that's definitely for me like that. I think for most people that's had that. So the aspect of trying to get in with Joe and Beck, that worked for me as far as her reasoning of just trying to find herself, and then him just like we're perfect for each other. Because maybe on paper they kind of are as far as their personalities. Clearly when he's not manipulating them, they're just hanging out. It's not like he's manipulating her to date and then when they date they hate each other, right? Like at one point she does admit that she loves him. Once she finds out he killed a bunch of people, that's gone. But clearly there was an attraction there. They flirted together a few times before he was creepy. So I think we've all had that, so I think that's where I connect with that. I think Beck, like I said, is a good character as far as just setting up why not with Joe. Yeah, she's not great as far as her life choices, and there's so many times where a normal person, because Joe's fixated on her, there's so many times, and I know Dylan's going to bring this up, where she just throws him to the side and then brings him back, throws him aside, brings him back, and it's clearly, again, like, she's not right for you, but because he's just obsessed with her, he's going to do anything he can. And, yeah, I thought she did a good job. I liked the kind of, I think the writer's thing was a good idea. It keeps her busy, and it's like a good way for Joe to always be like, oh, motivate you this way, and it's kind of tied into, as far as I wanted to bring up when we were talking about Joe, like, killing people, that he never just was like, oh, if we break up, I'm going to kill her. They broke up, and he legitimately let her go, right? The only reason he killed her is because he was going to get caught, and then we find out he didn't kill Candace. So that was another big thing to me, that they didn't make him completely just, he's a mad killer. And I think that helped, that he was willing to let her go, and he did give her up for a while until she kind of came back around, and, poor Karen just lasted one episode, that was it. But I liked her. I liked her for what she was. I feel like she makes a lot of poor choices in this, but I feel like that she's kind of like Joe, where that's designed. She's supposed to make a lot of poor choices. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I really have to bring up on Beck is just that kind of interaction that happens a lot, where Joe says something to her that, maybe sometimes he's like overstepping his boundaries and it's like kind of understandable, but he says something and it kind of like pisses her off, and then she like storms out and like is kind of rude or whatever. And then she'll go off, and whoever she's talking to, whether it's like Peach or
the writer and the
Benji or the writer, whoever it is, has like that bad interaction. And then she just comes crawling back and is like apologizing to him. And I don't think any like individual one of those was like poorly written. It was just the fact that it felt to me like it was the same thing over and over. And I think there was probably like 3 or 4 episodes after, I don't know what episode it was, but I'm gonna say like episode around like 3, maybe to 6 or 7, where I felt like that same interaction was happening over and over again, and I felt like there wasn't much progression in the show outside of that. So I just felt like we're just stuck in a time loop right now, and I don't really know where we're going. So
it happened 3 separate times. It happened when he's like, oh, you can just write about your dad, and she's like, what do you know about my dad? It happened when the limo guy, when he was like, he doesn't want you for his books, and then it happened when like, oh, Peach loves you, and like, what would you know about that? It literally was 3 episodes in a row, the same like kicks on the curb, then text him, I'm not mad at you anymore. It's like.
So like I said, it wasn't like any of those individually are bad. It's just when you pile them all together, it gets a little tedious. Thankfully, it picked up like directly after that with like the Peach stuff really kind of culminating. So I was back into the show after that sequence, but that was probably my least favorite part, was those like segments, those 3 episodes, I guess.
Yeah, no, I could agree with you. I think that was like the slowest part, because when I was mentioning. Like, this is, like, in sections where it's, like, he meets her, they date, the Peach stuff, they break up, and then the finale. And that's what I liked about it, but that was the sloggiest, like, of the dating portion of just them kind of rinse and repeat. I didn't like the dad episode. Maybe the dad will come into play next season when they're, like, investigating more, but I get it worked for some of her backstory, but I just didn't like the whole. We spent so much time with her parent and like the drug, like the Christian lady and stuff like that. That just didn't interest me at all. I like learning about Beck lying about her dad, but they didn't really get into that either. She didn't make a big deal about lying. She's like, I kind of
forget about him.
yeah. So that was my least favorite episode of the season, was that dress up episode. So
I think acting wise, I agree. I think she did a good job, and I don't really have much else to say about her because it's kind of all about Joe, really. So that's all I had on Beck.
I think part of what makes her character is Joe's monologue. Like, if you were to take some of her scenes and then just take away the monologue that happens, like her in the library, you know, it's all about, oh, you know, you're wearing this, so you want to be noticed, but you're wearing this, so not fully. Oh, but you're not wearing a bra, so you want me to look. So you're giving me your credit card, so I know your name. You know, had all these interactions happen without kind of that breakdown of how he sees her, it would have just been, okay, she's buying a book and he's helping her. So I think a lot of Beck's character is really based on Joe. So, you know, he's almost like 2 of 3 main characters.
Yeah, he really defines her character. That's the storytelling of the show is the style, right?
So, yeah. I mean, her character herself is quite bland. Sleep with random guys, get mad, and then go back.
Repeat.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hop in the shower, do it all over again.
Go out with your friends, be upset with your friends, go out with your friends, be upset with your friends.
Go bang the therapist.
Not know that your friend is obsessed with you for somehow magical way after you've been friends for how many years?
I don't know. Like, I've never had an obsessive friend other than maybe Taylor, but I feel like they did that good enough that she was always just trying. I guess I wanted to see more of that. If I could have made a call, if I could have called that or not, because I feel like the early interactions we had with them was just she was a friend who just didn't like her being poor, pretty much. Like, I didn't get the full-on obsessed thing.
Yeah,
I got the lesbian thing for sure.
Maybe, like right away?
Yeah, there's one of the beginning scenes and stuff where, you know, there's like, she's trying to like touch her hand and move closer to her when they're out and things like that.
I thought it was what girls did.
That's what we do all the time.
I do that with the boys.
All the time. Middle smash
she
around.
She didn't say no homo after, so.
No.
I don't think people do that anymore, do they?
No, I don't think so.
That was definitely a couple of years ago. I'm old.
Briggs, what do you think about Beck?
I really like. I don't want to be too redundant, but I really liked her character in.
Well, she was kind of redundant, so you can.
I think it's fitting use of word, but I mean, the actor did a great job. I think the character was written to kind of piss you off a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job of that. I think they set her up as this kind of like dumb character who's not great for Joe, but for whatever reason, Joe's fallen in love with her. And so it worked for me. I enjoyed it. I think it was good for the plot and for the story and all that, and it worked for Joe's character, but I don't think there's too much more to her than that. And a lot of it was fairly redundant with like 3 episodes of her just, hey, I'm wrong, and Joe's right. Oh, I'm wrong, and Joe's right again. And then kind of working through that. The only time where like she actually had her own sort of development in a way was when they broke up, I guess. But
yeah, a little. And
the rest of it was through Joe, pretty much. And then, so I don't know. I think her character works. I don't have any too big of issues with it. I mean, it's all like plausible. It's all believable stuff. I know it's outlandish, but it's supposed to be outlandish. Otherwise, the show wouldn't work as it is. Joe would have just got caught right away. And there you go. That's the show.
Great 3-episode season. Yeah, British style. Yeah, 6 episodes. And I think she develops a little bit at the end when she was writing the story.
Yeah, in the very last episode, as she's writing in the cave, she kind of fully pulls together.
Yeah, like she doesn't say that she deserves Joe, but she realizes like all like the mistakes she made and whatnot, everything like that. So, did you guys think that she was sleeping with the therapist the first time you watched it? Because they kind of do that fake out of like she is, but then she's not, but then later on it's revealed. Did you think that was?
Let's just say it didn't surprise me. If I had to put my money on it, I probably would have said no. She's good now. She's with Joe. I don't know.
The reason it didn't surprise me is just because they had John Stamos, and I was just like, he can't just be the thing.
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, he was like a heartthrob.
I know the name, but like I didn't know that was John Stamos.
Your mom knows who John Stamos is. Like all our moms do, but like you don't get
Like
an
when you
80s
said John Stamos earlier in the cast, I thought you were just like
the character
comparing him, like, oh, that guy's like John Stamos.
Oh no, yeah, it's John Stamos.
He's
No.
very much like.
So when I saw him, I'm like, okay, he's a bigger actor. Something's up. He ain't
Okay.
gonna be just his therapist sitting there. I actually liked, even though you brought the points of him going back, I actually liked the scenes with Joe and the therapist when he was not trying to kill him, when they were literally talking about the mouse in the house and all that. I liked that because it did, and I really like at one point when they're intercutting between Beck in his session, because he's telling Joe just to stay with Karen, and then he's telling Beck to like go get Joe. So it's like he's giving them like opposite advice, and it's great, but it's like advice that's kind of clashing. So
I thought he was telling Beck to leave.
was
them
he?
alone?
Because I thought, because when they're talking about how do you catch a mouse, and she goes with a trap, and then that's that scene when they go and she helps Ethan, whatever that the weird writer chick is, help moving.
Yeah.
So that's why I took it as like, maybe she took the wrong information from it. Maybe
I think it was he was telling her to leave Joe alone because she would be trapping Joe.
Oh,
And
okay.
if she followed him, like all their relationship was a trap. It wasn't anything more. Whereas him and Karen had a house, but she did the opposite of what he told her to do, and she kept going for him.
Yeah, that would make more sense then, probably.
Yeah.
So.
Although despite obviously Joe going in with like a different story, the fact that he's using the exact same metaphors for these two separate people, it's like. You'd think he might clue in. He's like, wait a minute.
I guess that's why he said he was gay, right? I guess that was the only way of John Stamos right away going, oh, he's talking about a dude, so it couldn't possibly be me, right? So
yeah.
But therapists, I mean, they probably use that same reference.
Yeah.
For a lot of
he probably
different
does
people.
use.
Oh yeah.
he even says that I have thousands of metaphors for you. I
But,
can
I
throw
mean-
around you all day, Beck.
Yeah.
And I think
there's also a thing. Even if he does realize it, there's nothing he can do about it
Mhm.
because it would be breaking like doctor-patient confidentiality anyways.
Yeah.
So he couldn't legally
You can't break
say.
that.
Yeah, you
Legal.
can't.
no,
It
not
is.
on this show.
You
no.
get
You get
you
fined.
lose your practice.
Did
so.
we ever
Yeah,
get a
toss him in
reason,
jail.
like, or any type of anything that happened from his glaucoma and smoking marijuana during sessions?
I think that was just like a weed joke or something.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Glaucoma?
Like he like lit up in front of Joe that one time.
Oh yeah.
I think that's just like
I'm
I
just
don't think
wondering
it
if
matters.
there-
Isn't it legal now? Over there? or
Was
no?
that a cancer thing?
I'm
Is that
pretty
what
sure
you
it's
took it as?
legal in New York.
I didn't even really think
California?
about it.
California, New York?
I just took it as like it's not something that people think is taboo anymore, so
Yeah.
I didn't really care.
I think it was also to almost set up as him being a therapist that would cheat, that would have sex with one of his patients to make him seem a little scummy.
Okay.
Almost.
Yeah,
I didn't think
like,
it was kind of
scummy
weird that he was
careless
smoking
to
like
some
during a
degree.
session.
yeah.
I
I thought he was going for that cool guy therapist, like, you can tell me anything, you know? Like,
You can relax here.
Yeah, I think it was trying to set him up in a way that as the type of guy who would sleep with one of his patients. But
John Stamos, what a
fucking
guy.
John Stamos.
And this is the one last thing I'll add on Beck is it sounds a little dark, but I kind of wish we got I wish we got to see, it sounds dark. I wish we got to see Joe kill her. To be honest, because when she breaks out of that cage, she runs up the stairs, and the very last time we see Beck is he just grabs her and they cut, and it's been 4 months later. And I felt like that character needed a bigger showcase, and I wanted to see, because Joe, we haven't seen him kill anyone that he's emotionally attached to, so I wanted to see how that affected him.
Yeah.
It was weird that Benji was the only one who got like a really kind of, I don't know, more intense like death scene or killing process.
I think he's the only person who actually saw die.
Well, and Ron too. Remember he stabbed him in the neck.
Yeah.
Very,
That- I
very
hated
quick,
Ron,
and you
right?
can't really see
Like
it.
you don't even
And then
see him
Peach
actually
as well is
shoot Peach.
completely
It's
off
just a
screen.
gunshot.
Yeah.
I think there's not even a lot of suspense to it. Almost like less than a minute later, you see Joe alive.
Yeah,
so.
and even the Benji stuff, he just gave him peanut oil, so it's not like he killed him, but it did.
Right.
He didn't have to assert
It's
it.
still a
Right?
pretty like grotesque
Do
scene.
we
Well,
see
and
the
we
guy
forgot
off
about-
the roof?
Well, Candace's. Yeah, we'll get into Candace.
Yeah, what I
yeah.
forget. Did you see him land in the ground?
Yeah, you did, because then you see one person like run over and he like.
You don't see him actually land. You just see him on the ground
Right.
after that.
You see him on the ground after. Right. Right. Probably budget reasons.
Yeah.
We can't film that, guys.
No,
But
it's definitely PG-13.
I wanted to see Joe be emotional because when we cut us 4 months later, and in his monologue, he looks very depressed. Always putting up with his books. He's talking about how much he misses her and how he wishes she was there. But I would have liked to seen what would have happened because, like, once again, I'll throw to Dexter when we've seen things when he had to like kill Miguel or kill someone that it was always different, right? And that's why I wish we kind of got that because I think that could have added more to him and seeing him emotional and taking away from that like cold killer thing because obviously it's revealed Candace is alive and they played it up. Even though I did not. When I watched the second time, I didn't believe it the first time, but even the second time, they say certain lines that he says that makes it sound like she's alive, and I like that because there's going to be some stuff to mine there and things like that. I feel like I don't know how much of a big role she's going to play in season 2, but I feel like I feel like they're definitely gonna sleep together one more time, and it's gonna be an issue. And you know, Joe, I don't think she can make it out of season 2. I'll say that. But so yeah, I wish we saw Beck's death on screen because the show was kind of rated R too. It's not like it was.
Is this?
Well,
No.
but when Ron got stabbed right in the neck, you saw blood spurt out. Like I don't like. It's not. I think it was enough. You could have. It's not like a PG show where I feel like
there's banging.
Well, yeah, but
There's no
It is
penis
really
there,
confusing,
but-
right? Because then,
Yeah.
Beck and Peach's deaths are very tame. In fact,
Yeah.
not even season at all. So
Or
it
the
is.
Peaches was for the suspense factor of who killed
who got shot? Who shot JR?
Which was poorly done, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I guess so.
But
I guess that's a good point.
It's TV mature audience.
So there you go. Yeah, so they could have showed him strangling.
Yeah, I would like
Beck.
to see that.
Yeah. So.
You
Yeah.
think he strangled her?
I think so. Well, I think so because I don't think he would have like wanted to damage her face. You know, open casket, open funeral, maybe. You know.
No, there's no funeral.
Well, they found the body, so there had to be a funeral, right? Because he has her wrapped up in the trunk. Because I did look at it a second time because I thought maybe it was gonna be like Candace that maybe he just had her locked up somewhere. Which Candace says like, "I'm alive." I don't believe for a second he tried to kill Candace or anything like that. I think they're just trying to build suspense. But I think she doesn't really have an idea. I think she knows he's a little messed up, but I don't think she. I think she's coming back because, you know, Joe's sad and maybe she's like sad in her life, so she's come back to like you know. As like what do they call that? Like
Go for one last ride.
Yeah, like
Well, wasn't her like last line or her only line? We need to talk about some stuff or something.
we have unfinished business, but the reason.
Ah, yes, a classic line.
yeah.
Never been written.
But the
before.
reason why I don't think anything's bad because when she says "Hey, bunny," and she sounds really sad, so I feel like she's there to check up on him. But like I said, to get like what do they call that? Seconds or what is that? Sloppy seconds.
The
That's
rebound.
yeah, I feel like that's what Joe was gonna be for her, and he's gonna be really pissed. Like he might think, "Oh, we got a shot this time," and then I don't know. What else do we want to talk about? Anything else? Bring up this time.
There's not really any characters that I feel are really that worthy of mention.
Ethan, I like that he was only in there for a very minor part.
The bookkeeper guy.
Yeah.
Well, he's the only
I like
likable
Ethan.
character in the show. So
Is he likable?
I feel like he's
I thought
intentionally.
he
You're
was
supposed to be
alright.
like happy-go-lucky, like this
Yeah.
guy's a fun, nice guy. He wouldn't do anything wrong. He wouldn't kill people.
It's a little annoying.
Yeah.
He's just
I mean, I didn't really like Blythe much. She was
Blythe?
kind of an yeah.
Who the hell's Blythe? You just make up that name off the top of your head? I've never heard that word in my life. Blythe?
Anyways,
No, but I don't know that.
Who is that?
she's the person who gets
The
you out
writer.
with Ethan.
It's what's her name? Beck's
The
writing
other
friend.
TA.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know her name is Blythe.
Yeah,
What
I
did you
know
think
that.
it was?
I didn't have no idea.
She doesn't.
Jeez, watch the show, man.
Blythe sounds like a Star Wars character.
Yeah, I didn't
It's
catch
fucking
it.
Blythe.
That character didn't have enough of an arc for me to even want to talk about, so I don't even know her name.
I don't know. She just really bothered me a lot. and
I agree.
then-
Yeah.
But then she got out with Ethan, and I was really happy for both of them. So.
Really happy.
Yeah,
I
I was like,
Yeah.
I was exceptionally happy for
Blythe.
both of them.
I like how she just kind of accepts that she's got this manuscript about how this guy killed her that Beck wrote, and she's like, yeah, it just came in the mail one day.
It spoke to me, so she had to publish it.
But it's like, you don't wonder,
That's
like,
what she said. It spoke to me.
Blythe, what are you doing?
like, obviously the guy's not gonna, like, I just killed this girl, I'm gonna mail this. And what, did she stick it in the mail with no letter or anything, and then, you know, didn't say anything? It just doesn't make sense that she just kind of accepted, oh, this thing on how she was murdered came, and I publish it.
Well, I think that'll come into play. Just because so that last scene with the PI with the book, I think, kind of sets up that he's gonna be like, yeah, bullshit. Like none of this makes sense to him.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just really hoping this guy's a good actor because I feel like he's gonna be like Joe's Dokes and. You know, we need a good actor. Like from what I saw, a few scenes, like he was all right, but he needs someone like. I wish they should have just got the Dokes actor.
Yeah, where has that guy been? I haven't seen him in anything.
I think he legitimately stopped acting. He was just I'm kind of done with it. Yeah. I think he was on CSI for a little while, but he's like, yeah. Sometimes people do that. Like I did it. I was Dokes. It's not gonna get any better than Dokes. That's why.
I want to see him in the MCU or something.
Oh, when they recast Luke Cage, boom.
Yeah,
There.
that would be sick.
Yeah,
I
it
would love
would be.
it.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else on right. Like I said, I like the soundtrack. Let's talk about because Dylan, rolled his eyes when we talk about this. Let's talk about his Harry, Ollie there or whatever. So obviously, they said that Joe. We don't really know much, but his parents abandoned him. He was on the streets. This guy took him in and kind of raised him. And obviously, he punished him and would put him in that room constantly all the time. And then he took over the bookstore. So, but that's where I say that's very similar to Dexter's. Like, I agree with you. Those scenes are bad, but it's a flashback of like, this is the father figure training Dexter. This is the father figure training Joe.
I think to me, it just had such little substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it doesn't even feel like worthy of comparison.
Yeah.
It is filling that same role, and then you could say that it kind of goes down the line, and maybe that's why Joe looks after Paco as well.
Yeah, but I think the way they use like his lending books to Paco and he's like, these are books that I read growing up that really helped me. I thought those were better. That was a better way of looking into Joe's past than the flashbacks.
Right, like that's you kind of have to live within
like living with the enemy. I thought was a really good one, in that he doesn't necessarily view Mooney as a friend, and that he views and then like Frankenstein obviously is like, he's Frankenstein.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the books that he was giving were about himself, not about his past or anything like that.
Well, yeah, like they're about himself, but it's sort of like this is how he kind of became who he is.
Yeah, it's also set up that maybe if Mooney was in his life, he wouldn't be this bad of a guy.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still a chance, because when you're sick, but I feel like Mooney
really brought that out.
Yeah, really did. He didn't suppress it, he kind of brought it out. Because even when he has Beck in there originally, he's like, this is a chance for you to learn, and a chance to grow, and you can write, and it's the retreat you've always wanted, and he's always just like, he just doesn't get it. Even like I said, when he kills Beck, he just talks about her like it was a breakup. It's like, he just doesn't understand, and I feel like that's what Mooney, even when Mooney gives that speech of like, hey, people die, but guess what, you're alive, and that's all that matters. That's where he kind of makes Benji, those people just like objects. He's like, those people don't matter, it's just about you, you know? So I think we're going to get more Mooney flashbacks in season 2. I really do.
Hopefully better done, but
I hope so. I really do. Yeah. Anything else?
Did you guys want to talk about like Paco and that kind of Ron abusive drunk relationship thing?
I didn't love those scenes. I didn't think they're awful. I think it's useful to the show because it shows another angle of someone who, like, it's clear to the viewer that, like, she shouldn't be with him anymore. She should leave him. But but she still, like, stays with him. And obviously it's slightly different for her because she has a pretty severe drug problem, so that kind of changes the situation. But I don't know, I think it's, in hindsight, it's kind of interesting to show, like, another perspective of that, right? So I guess that's like an interesting part of it, but it's I don't know. I think they had enough in the show that, like, it actually does get enough time for, like, how small the story it is. It gets, like, enough time to feel warranted, I guess, and you do, like, care about Paco and his mom at least a little bit, and I guess it makes the moment when Joe kills Ron. I mean, I didn't like that scene necessarily, but I think it makes that, like, more warranted. Like, it makes Ron have enough of a character at that point that it's like. It's a lot more interesting than when Joe pushes that guy off the roof that you've never heard of. Now, obviously, that was a flashback, so it's kind of different. But, I don't know. I think it served its purpose for the show, and it was fine. Nothing to write home about.
I think, the biggest thing with that whole arc was, like, Paco is, like, really grounded Joe as, like, still being a human and still having some empathy to him. To some degree. I mean, as limited as it is, but, and then that arc sort of kept things with Paco very treacherous and rocky, and kept it like there was some tension as to what might happen to Paco, which gave Joe a reason to stay involved, which I think was important. And then also I really like what they did actually with how they hinted at Ron almost being changed when he showed up with flowers, and he thanked Joe for helping out Claudia and that sort of thing. It wasn't like a huge, like, very convincing, but it hinted that he might have changed a little bit. And what I really liked about that is there was a couple times throughout the show where where Joe had this philosophy that people don't change, and they brought that up a couple times, and it was a good way of making the viewer think, like, maybe Joe's wrong about not this, but, like, a lot of things. Obviously there's a lot of things he's wrong about, but it really shakes your belief in him, in that it shows that maybe Ron has changed, and it's like maybe Joe's wrong about, like, more than we thought he was wrong about.
Okay.
And it gives like an interesting view and perspective on this this whole sort of dynamic that's going on. And then in the end, obviously, he hasn't changed, but it makes you think about that sort of situation, and hey, maybe, like, there's all these things that we thought Joe might be right about, but he's actually wrong because of something he didn't quite see. Because he can't quite connect with people.
That's a good perspective.
Right on.
I also thought that it was hypocritical of him, like, not thinking people can change, but the whole show is about him trying to change.
Yeah.
The whole show is about, like, she'll change if I do this.
It brings up a lot of I think there's quite a bit of depth there to a lot of the dynamics of the show if you want to look into it enough. There are quite a lot of small little, some obvious with like the Frankenstein reference and stuff, but there's quite a lot of small things that you can kind of relate back and forth to the show, which I really enjoyed about it. It is a treasure trove of little things to notice and think about. So
Cool.
I liked it for the Paco aspects. Most other stuff I was kind of, that's when I was like, it was my least favorite stuff, you know, but I liked it. Obviously set up how he met Karen, so that was fun. And then I liked Paco kind of returned the favor, killed Ron, and he saw Beck locked up. I closed that door and back. Sorry, I owe Joe money, you know, even though it's kind of Paco's fault that she's down there, you know. He didn't have to tell. Bro,
I feel bad for Paco, man. That's a shitty life he's had.
He's gonna grow up really bad.
yeah, Paco like
yeah.
What if the second season you is just 30 years later and it's just Paco doing the same thing?
I think Paco will.
30. That's
a big jump.
10 years later. Paco's doing the same thing.
I didn't think about it.
I think Paco will. I think Paco will
That's what I
be in
did.
season 2. I think there'll be an
Sounds
episode where he like runs away from home and shows up on Joe's doorstep. So that's a prediction of mine that Paco will be. You know, they have that connection. So, but yeah, you know what, Broco? Don't tell the girl about the hidden spot you have on the roof. You know, like could you said, hey, my dad found or Ron found this, and Joe.
Well,
you know,
he didn't think he thought it was harmless.
I know, but it definitely was, and there's teeth in there. I think the best thing about that kid is everything seems like you know, but when you find the bloody tampon in there, that's what really puts it over. Like, this guy's just such a fucking creep. Because the rest of the stuff, it's like photos of her, and it's like, okay, and the stalker's like, okay, he's keeping this stuff, a shirt, okay, but when it's that, it's like, why do you even have this? Like, what is the point of it? Like, Benji's teeth, like, I understand you're hiding them, but that's why it's like, you know, the Dexter thing, gotta keep those blood slides, you know, serial killers can't get rid of their trophies, you know, it's, even though they're mementos, it's just like, you wearing my shirt.
That reminds me of the one scene I thought was pretty funny when, like, they first hook up and Beck just arrives at his house and he's like, oh shit, they're like making out, he's like hiding the phone,
That's a cool
putting the
scene.
book like
Yeah.
under the counter, like putting the panties or whatever like under the counter.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, why did you just open that door without looking through the people? I was like, just like, give me a second, hide all that stuff, but no, you're just too excited. You
Or
know?
just don't leave that stuff lying around.
Or maybe
Yeah.
he's just short-sighted.
Yeah. He's all the above.
Could be,
You know?
He was concussed the entire season. That's the
Maybe.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to the Falco Ron thing that I didn't
Yeah.
didn't let
What do
me
you think
talk Travis.
of Paco?
I wasn't finished. I was still talking about Paco. You know, go ahead.
I like the dynamic that he brought, and there was actually times where when he gives them the list to go shopping, where he actually but I was pissed off. I'm like, hey, come on, man, don't get the little kid to go buy all these freaking chemicals to burn down your bodies and.
It's Beck or Paco, and Beck's gonna win every time, unfortunately. You know.
Yeah. So but you hear Ron fighting all the time and beating up this woman and this and that. I almost found that it's almost satisfying to watch him get stabbed in the neck at the end of it.
Mm.
You really hated
He
him.
is a dickhead.
Yeah, so it almost makes you side with Joe a little bit because you can understand being pissed off at that one and hearing, Ron's beat the shit out of him and all this other stuff has happened. So I think too, it almost made Joe a more relatable character in the way that you can understand him wanting to care about this kid and giving him his food and trying to keep him entertained while all this shit's going on. And it was also, they could have done it another way, but it was also a way for him to meet Karen too, right? Because she was in because of.
She worked with Claudia,
Yeah.
and then she was worried about her because of the drugs and everything.
Yeah.
So.
So I thought that was a good way to introduce a new character without him being like, I'm just another girl from the bookstore that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a normal reaction to kind of blend her in.
Mhm.
So I would think that was a kind of a good way to have that extra character introduced from, the storyline that had just kind of enough information about them.
Yeah.
So.
And I think Paco helps because if that Paco storyline's not there at all, he's just more monster. It's not black and white, right? Of like, if you take that out entirely, it's just, he's just a bad character who's just killing once innocent people. But that kid's like, oh, he's taking care of this little kid. You should still go to prison, but you mean well. You're just doing things really ass backwards. So.
Yeah.
Anything else?
My last very quick point is I like that obviously they didn't show it's like the switch up that it was Candace in the bookstore and not some other random girl, but I like when things loop generally, so I like the very start of the show and then the very end of the show, even though it's obviously not the exact same situation because
Who are you?
Character, yeah.
I do like that I like that sequence a lot where it's like, oh, who are you? And then it shows like it pretty much he's saying the same things as he said about Beck when he first saw her almost.
Yeah.
Like. But
legs bare.
I'm not a fan of it being Candace. I think I like that story being shrouded in mystery. Maybe you bring it up in the second season, but I don't think you lead into the second season with it. But I mean, it's for me, it was just too easy of a setup for a second season sort of thing.
I think it's a fun little cliffhanger. Like I said, I think the idea is that she sees on the news this girl gets, well, in classic Candace, this girl that now is famous has get killed, and now she's gonna come and see what's up to Joe. And I feel like I agree with you though. I would almost rather not be on a cliffhanger because I like every show to not end on a cliffhanger because you just never know. And I like that one season, one and done. It's like a mini movie, so I can agree with you on that point.
Yeah, I really liked the ending of just Joe getting away with it and doing his book story. He had his ending monologue, and I like that it started looping into him. Going back into his like kind of disgusting routine of like of his next victim pretty much and it really shows he doesn't realize it, but it really shows what's wrong with him, how this is what he's decided to do because of the way he's built, and it's messed up, and maybe this time he gets caught, maybe he doesn't, but this is kind of the loop that he lives in. And I wish it kind of finished with that. I don't
No, you guys make a good point. I think when I watched it, there's obviously a lot of problems I had in the show that could easily be changed, or like they would fix that problem if they addressed it in the second season. Whereas that one, to me, obviously it was like so much more of a cliffhanger that like I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it because it kind of depends on the second season. But I do agree that usually it's better like cap something off with its own story and have a proper ending. Assuming it doesn't get in the
and leave it much more ambiguous as to what happens after, because now we know he's gonna have some sort of. There's gonna be some sort of situation with Candace. And I think
if they just didn't have Candace there, there's still that question, and like when she is in the second season, it wouldn't feel like out of place. Like they're just bringing back some random character. It'd be like, well, we actually never knew like what happened to her. That was always kind of a mystery, and it wasn't like super touched upon. But now they're definitely leaving you hanging. So
I'm excited though. See what it is. I'm excited that
I'll definitely check it out.
Beck's definitely gonna be back. As far as like that episode when he gets a concussion, sees Candace. I think Beck's gonna have an episode of like. My favorite storytelling device in any media is like the Jiminy Cricket like fantasy friend, and I think she'll be back for an episode 2 of like talking to him and like don't make the same mistakes, blah blah blah. Like I think that's gonna happen.
Can't you see that this guy is doing what Benji was doing to me?
Exactly, something like that. Because even at the end when he's talking about it, he's just like, "Oh, Beck I couldn't love her the way she wanted." But it's like, no man, you also kind of killed her too. It wasn't that.
Just kind of.
Yeah.
I have some issue with that because I know he figured out that he has to deal with Candace head on, and he dealt with her.
Yeah.
And when he was with Beck, but near the end there, he no longer like had those issues with her. He was fine. It's all behind him. And what I got from the ending, the final scene, was that he had put his whatever he had with Beck to bed. He had come to terms with everything that he'd done to her, and that it wouldn't work out, and he was satisfied, and there was no like inner conflict that hadn't been resolved in relation to Beck. So I could see her not coming back. Maybe there is some, obviously like her being in the first season will have some influence, but I don't see him having a flashback of her.
I don't know a flashback, but I see like dream sequence, something like that. Like I feel like something, not even if it's unresolved, it's just because she was a main character in this one. Usually they find a way to bring them back for like an episode or two, but I could be wrong. But and I also feel like you're probably gonna see Candace's father, or not Candace, Beck's father again. You're gonna see her friends. You're gonna probably see John. If they follow that, if they have all these characters that are still around that are connected to Beck, she's gonna be talked about a lot, honestly, right? And I think that's gonna be hopefully what brings them down is him murdering Beck. So
Now I think about it just a little more. I can see her coming back, but more in the way in how Candace was always like, in kind of like a disturbing way for him. Whereas I could see Beck coming back in a more supportive way because he's put that to bed and he still loves her very much.
It feels like that ended on a good note.
It does.
As well as it could. I could see like a dream of like Beck like supporting him, like urging him on to do something that he supports, and like really being that kind of like a driving, like a beneficial force, like an angel watching over him, rather than some like demon from his past, kind of
Yeah.
stalking him.
I can also see one of those classic what if dream episodes where he just is in a dream and it's like they have a bunch of kids and everything like worked out okay, but it didn't. Yeah.
Then he wakes up and Candace is beside him and he's like, oh no.
Candace is gonna be
He's gonna
exciting.
wake up screaming back.
Yeah. Anything else? Put this cup of Joe to bed. I'm giving this a nice 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 is always my, 6 is just a little bit more past 7. That's always I enjoyed it a lot. I'm really excited for second season. There's tons of problems. There's tons of suspension of disbelief. Like I said, it's not one of these shows I'm going to say you have to watch, but I think it's a fun watch. I think it has has some good character as far as Joe, as far as just the maybe not the getting away with stuff, but just the inside of his mind, and there's some fun dialogue. There's some fun play on real world and dating and social media. So yeah, a nice 7 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. When second season drops, I'll be binging that right away. Because it's gotta get me some more Joe.
I said everything I have to say about the show. I too am excited for the second season. At least, I don't know if I'll watch the full thing. I think I'll have to see what it's like 3 or 4 episodes in. Maybe I'll be hooked at that point. Maybe I won't. I'm not sure.
You have to be on the review though. We've done this, so.
I'm not contractually obliged
if you got through Jessica Jones season 2, you can get through you.
That's probably true. Fuck that season. That was not good.
Yeah, not good. Check out our review. Woof.
Woof.
You guys got any
Not
fun
even
ones?
gonna tier it.
What? No, I've never done that.
No.
I can't do that live. I watch such little amount of TV shows that would be.
This is S tier.
That would be
so
un-
little.
that would be
It's Survivor
unjust.
and then you.
That would be unjust for me to rank this because I don't watch a ton of TV.
Do you want to go?
Sure. I think that it was, it was better than some of the stuff that I put on that I've watched a couple episodes and been like, well, not gonna finish that ever, and it just sits in my continue watching section on Netflix forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's gave the entertainment. It definitely, there was episodes where it's like, okay, what's gonna happen here? There's moments where it is, bit piss you off-ish, and I think, maybe that's the charm for some people though, is that being so into it that you feel the different emotions from it. Yeah, definitely worth a watch. Better than some of the shit I've watched on Netflix recently.
Netflix.
And I am excited to see kind of what happens in the next season. As I said, I looked at the books because I debated. I'm like, maybe I'll read what's going to happen and compare it. Decide against it. Not that into it, but,
Respect.
Yeah, I don't know if season 2 will be good, but I feel like it'll still be like season 1 where it'll always leave you away oh, I gotta see what's next. You'll have those episodes where okay, and then someone will be like, oh, how's Joe gonna weaselly his way out of this one unconvincingly. So Briggs, end us off and let's go.
I'm not gonna give it a score for some reason.
Respect.
It just doesn't feel right to give this one a score for some reason. Maybe it's because it's a TV show, but
You don't deserve
I'm
to
not
score
gonna
as
give this one
TV
a
shows.
score. But overall, I really liked it and I enjoyed it a lot. There are definitely some things that were frustrating about it and some things that I think could have been done differently. But as far as the majority of things go and the overall kind of thoughts of the show, I think it was really well done. The acting was really well done. I think the way they wanted the characters to be portrayed were portrayed very successfully, whether they wanted you to like the character or dislike the character. I think the actors did a wonderful job with that. The cinematography was phenomenal. It's phenomenal that it was just so unique, and I really liked the sort of tone it set for the entire series. And then music it wasn't super it didn't stand out to me so much, but there were definitely some tracks that felt very fitting for some of those more devious moments and creepy moments. I think you definitely need to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief to follow it along and be happy with it. It does get a little outlandish, and the pace of the show definitely changes, and kind of the tone of it changes throughout it. The season, but you could follow it in very specific arcs, so it does make sense. It doesn't feel too all over the place. So overall, yeah, I think I'd recommend it to a lot of people. If you're not a fan of being unsettled, then maybe don't go see this show, because some of it, if you look at it in the right light, some of it does feel almost very real and very unsettling. And so if you're very sensitive over those sorts of things, then maybe don't watch this show.
There's a Joe out there.
But
there could be someone
I think-
masturbating outside your window.
it's true.
Right now.
I think
What's
I-
up? Cast.
I really
Get in
enjoy the take they do, the way they make it so you are rooting for a bad guy who was very clearly a bad guy with very bad motives, and it's not just like, oh, like, I would say it's even different than House of Cards and rooting for Kevin Spacey.
Because even then, at the beginning of the show, he was screwed over, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck these guys. But
Yeah, like
Joe was just, you know.
Joe, like you
Oh,
very
Joe.
clearly see there's something messed up and wrong with him, and he keeps going along with it. But he always had they like to sneak in these little, not quite redeeming moments, but these charismatic moments that make you still like the character. You want him to succeed
Mhm.
in what he's doing, despite how messed up he is, and
Mhm.
they do a really good job with that. And I like that a lot. And the narration is wonderful. And yeah, that's what I got.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our You review. If you like what you heard here, go to the description below. You got all the links down below for our Patreon, our YouTube podcast services. Next week will be our Glass review. So until next time, we promise you it'll not be boring.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Good night.
What if it's morning when they're watching?
Call
Sucks.